They want to know what an American warrior is. Yeah. Anybody that served in the United States military honorably. Yeah.
Welcome. This is the American Warrior Radio Show. I'm Garen Cohn, an Air Force veteran, founder of AVET Project, and also an accredited claims agent before the VA, and your host. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. military, you're in the right place, American Warrior Radio Show. So grab a pen and paper and strap in, because we're about to launch this episode.
Yeah, American Warrior. Okay, let's get it in for the women and servicemen. I came prepared and brought my game like ESPN.
American Warrior Radio Show's bumper and intro music is graciously provided by none other than war hero himself, Stephen Hobbs. Thank you, Stephen. Set the tone, my brother.
By the way, I keep the fams buzzing. I ain't worried about the outcome, the message gon' be clear. You can hate it or love it, but your freedom is still here.
Hi everyone, welcome again to American Warrior Radio Show with this exclusive interview with Dr. Joseph Rosado. He's an MD and an MBA and so many other things. From watching the first segment, the first part of this, you'll understand he's got a very learned past and he's experienced. We want to talk about some things relating specifically to vets, and that is how plant-based medicine, the use of medical marijuana, can help alleviate some of the symptoms and maybe even change the lives of our war fighters and particularly their families. So with that, Doc, I'm going to take off my hat and throw it to you. Thanks again for joining us. So Doc, yeah, the hat looks great. We have so many vets that go into theaters, and it may not even be a combat theater, but they go places around the world that present some extraordinary challenges to their mind and maybe even be involved in a accident or IED explosion where they might suffer traumatic brain injury, post-concussive syndrome, different things like that. How can and how does medical marijuana treat and improve the lives of our combat-stressed warriors that have witnessed things the average person will never see, thank God, and how cannabis can alleviate some of those issues?
When I first got into the medical cannabis movement in the state of Florida, and we actually had medication, was the latter part of 2016, as I mentioned in the previous segment, and into early 2017. So because of the free publicity I received by being on the local TV stations, local newspapers, and social media, people started finding me. And I was also involved with marijuanadoctors.com and eventually became their chief medical officer. So that was a platform that if anyone was searching for a medical cannabis physician in their community, all they had to do was reach out to me or through that platform and get a hold of my office. Well, many veterans immediately gravitated towards the practice and coming to my office. And one individual in particular, his story stood out because he came in with his wife. Now, he was not able to drive. He could not drive because of how severe his PTSD was, because he was a victim of an IED. And so he could not drive. The traffic, the vehicles, the sound, the noises just set him off. This individual had an extremely difficult time leaving his bedroom. About 1 or 2 weeks prior to his wife making the appointment, and I said his wife made the appointment to come into the office, he was taking a nap in his room. His son was playing a video game, and I don't remember the name of it, but it had something to do with war, shooting, whatever. The gentleman, the vet, was in his room taking a nap, apparently was in the midst of a nightmare, was hearing these noises, and it triggered him to have a nightmare. He woke up. In his mind, he was in theater, not in his bedroom, came busting out of his room, saw what he saw on the big screen, grabbed the video game, smashed it on the floor. His son's like, WTF? Wife's in the kitchen going, what the hell? And then he just collapses and breaks down into full on tears and goes into a panic attack.
Wow.
Something's going on.
We just lost Dr. Rosado to a medical emergency. Just keep in mind, he's on duty. He's at his clinic practicing medicine today, so that's totally excusable, and we appreciate the fact that his patients come first. You folks, our audience at American Warrior Radio Show comes second, believe me. Hope you're enjoying this topic. As we cover this, and he's developed this great story about a combat vet that experienced this horrific event on an ordinary day, and it threw him into a panic attack. So he's hopefully going to be able to give us some information as to how THC can combat that stress, combat the combat stress. I just wanted to bring up a couple other points though. There's pros and cons behind every issue. And most of you are probably familiar with the fact that people like TV personalities, Dr. Phil, who is adamantly opposed to it, and there's another doctor, I believe Dr. Oz is opposed to it. We know a personal doctor who does an incredible amount of good in the mental health side of the house, totally opposed to cannabis. Well, as I've always said, and I'm a big believer, it grows out of the ground. The efficacy is there by God. God gave us this, use it. Don't overuse it. Just like anything, use it in moderation. Use it to treat whatever might ail you that it's addressed to treat. Don't use it, if you want to use it recreationally, that's fine. I'm just talking specifically to the people that want to alleviate some of the neuropsychiatric stress that they suffer. Maybe it's gastrointestinal issues, neurological issues. The doc can speak to those things. So keeping in mind all the benefits of plant-based medicine, think of some of the downsides. One of them, and my producer John just told me, and I think it's a great, refresher. If you're on active duty in the military, not going to work. If you pop hot, if they give you a urine test and you've got marijuana, you're going to be facing some discipline. So don't do it. If you are in the law enforcement realm, like John has been in the past, don't do it either because it can mess up with your career. Just take that and run with it. You can see where I'm going. There's obvious prohibitions in certain career fields and times of life. For those of us that are outside of that and we don't have that pull against us, aside from the stigma, keep this in mind. Medical marijuana can have an adverse effect on, and I want to be very careful here, I'm talking about the state of Florida. Check into this in wherever you're listening. If you get a medical marijuana card here in the state of Florida, because now it's been decriminalized, it's essentially legal. Let's say you're being treated by the VA and Veterans Administration has a policy, just like the feds, not allowed. However, if you're getting something that's other than opioid treatments, chronic pain treatment, they're not going to bother. Even if they did do a urine test, they're probably not going to bother with you. But if you sign a contract, an ongoing contract for chronic pain management, and you pop hot for marijuana, they're going to titrate your dose down and say, okay, you're gone. So be very careful at the choices you make. And also, plays different in different states. In Florida, once you sign up with a doctor and you go through that 90-day process and you end up getting your card, you can go to the dispensary, all those good things. Guess what happens? You're also on a registry. And we don't like the word registry. I live in a free America, but guess what? That's the way it is. That's kind of the hem and haw, the give and take that you have to go through. That registry does not prohibit you from owning a firearm. No, no, no. It does not. Just because you're on a registry, if you own a weapon, a shotgun, a pistol for self-defense, home defense, even if you're a concealed carry holder, you can do that. However, you cannot sell a firearm. You cannot purchase a firearm because that list is cross-checked by none other than the ATF. This obviously stops a lot of guys and gals from going through and getting their medical marijuana card when they need it, and that would definitely help them, but be mindful of the cons, and that's one of them. Gun ownership is not going to be affected, but the ability to purchase or sell a firearm will. Potentially even your concealed carry permit holder. And John, I'll have him bring this topic up at a future episode so we can kind of put a fine point on this, because it's really something you have to look down the road. Yeah, I'm going to get my medical marijuana card. I'm going to be able to treat my PTSD better, or my chronic pain, my fibromyalgia, whatever might be ailing you that this great doctor, Dr. Joseph Rosado, has spoken about. Be mindful that there are other things in play too. Now, having said that, there's a big stigma attached to medical marijuana. You just heard the doctor talk about, 50,000 plus physicians, licensed physicians in the state of Florida. Only 2,500 to 3,500 actually approve and prescribe. That says that the medical profession, which is obviously got an enormous pull to the regular model, the allopathic model of having medicines to write and prescribe.
We're going to have Doctor back in a second.
Okay.
So when he pops in here, there you go.
Okay.
Click. Admit.
Dr. Rosado is back with us. Thank you, doctor, for rejoining us. I understand you had an emergency. You are a practicing physician. That is your clinic. So it's understood and appreciated that you give that kind of immediate care to urgent matters. But as a secondary urgent matter, thanks for coming back. And if you would, you were telling us a story about a combat vet that literally had a terrible episode where he actually manifested in a panic attack, and they come to see you. Can you continue on with that and how this plant-based medicine was able to positively impact his life?
Absolutely. So his wife, as I stated, made the appointment for him. They come in. He's, sitting in a corner, head down, no eye contact, fidgeting, just really uneasy with everything. We're talking, going through the process, everything else. We discussed different options for him, what's available, what's not available, etc. We get him started, and I always follow up my patients. At that time, the maximum that we can recommend for was for 45 days. Now, the state of Florida has expanded that to 210 days, but back then, we could only do 45-day increments. So I told him to come back in about a month and a half to see how he was doing, and just for him to keep a log in a journal of what he was using, how he was using it, etc. So he leaves. I don't think much of it. He comes back month and a half later. When he comes in, it's a different individual. He comes in by himself. First day. So I'm like, so he comes into the office. He's smiling. He's making eye contact. I asked him where his wife is. He said, "Oh, no, I came alone." I'm like, wait a minute. Say that again? Like, yeah, I drove myself.
And he wasn't impaired as he arrives at your clinic. He's just in a better place than he had certainly been last time.
He drove himself to the office, number one. Then he proceeds to tell me that the weekend before, he had taken his wife and children to Disney World. Now, I don't have
gentleman
PTSD.
that hadn't left his room, people.
I have PTSD, but not by being in war or theater. Going to Disney World gives me stress and anxiety. This man left his bedroom, left his home, took his family to spend the day at one of the busiest theme parks in Central Florida, probably the world, spends the day, and then drives himself that following week to my office to see me.
Within a month and a half, he goes from a mess on the floor almost to almost fully functional and able to navigate the enormous number of triggers that some place like Disneyland would provide.
And now I see him periodically, every 210 days. He continues to be my patient. And we'll talk, this is 2023, so he continues to be my patient. I see him every 6.5 months per state law. And he walks in and he's happy-go-lucky, cutting up jokes, drives his daughter who's special needs into the office with me. She's become patient as well because of her, her medical conditions, etc. And the wife comes in every once in a while. They'll come in as a family because from the office, and they'll go out to lunch or go to a park or whatever. But it's joined the family. That family was on Skid Row. They were on the verge of massive separation because how could she live with somebody that was that intent and
And
had that much
sure.
issue, that many, demons in his mind?
So aside from the nuts and bolts of how that plant-based medicine, medical marijuana, affects the body, because you mentioned that in the last segment, part one, you talked about the endocannabinoids. Is this going to be something that he's going to need for the rest of his life, or is it something that titrates off and he recovers from? Are there drawbacks? Because while you were gone handling your emergency, we spoke about some of the pros and cons, because there certainly are some cons. People need to be advised, and I'm sure you understand. I'm sure you advise your patients if you're in a critical profession that you simply cannot be under any influence of a drug. It's contraindicated. Active duty warfighters, they obviously can't because they're going to be drug screened and so on and so forth. And the stigma attached. But setting that aside, how long can a person that's suffering from PTSD, they were in the sandbox experiencing things that the rest of us hopefully never will, they come back, their brains all scrambled. How long? It obviously doesn't take very long for it to have an impact, as you just noted. That's more than anecdotal. That's not just a story. That's true life, people. So in a month and a half, it changed that person's life. I'm sure people are different at different levels, but how long does somebody expect to be on it, or is it a lifelong medicine?
It's a lifelong medicine because just like we have, as I mentioned earlier, we have an endocannabinoid system. Our endocannabinoids are depleted as we get older and as we experience stress. Now, because veterans are in a constant state of fight or flight, they are living in this state of stress, and in their brain, they're constantly at war. The whole purpose of the utilization of the medical cannabis is to aid in their ability to handle and deal with the situations that they're having to have had to deal with from their past, but also their present, and moving on and getting acclimated to being stateside. Because it's, you go from being in a regimented, regulated area where at certain time you are in a specific place to now you are free to roam and do whatever. And if you don't have that sense of urgency or understanding, because in your brain you're in this concern that if I'm driving my vehicle, an explosion is going to occur and it's going to kill my family, myself, that's a challenge. And so as a result of the depletion of the endocannabinoids, as we live a level of stress or a life of stress and or age, we have to constantly replenish that. And that's why we need it exogenously from the outside in. And so it is something that needs to be done long term. Now, in conjunction with this, new plant-based medicines are being introduced and are being utilized. Certain states in the United States have legalized them or have made them accessible to individuals. And we're talking about the magical mushrooms, psilocybin, is the main one. There's a company or a group in California called MAPS that is working to deschedule MDMA for the use of PTSD. I've gotten involved with and have been utilizing ketamine for the use of post-traumatic stress disorder, treatment-resistant depression, as well as suicidal ideations, which the FDA has created a medication that is esketamine, and it is used for those conditions. However, to date, insurance companies don't pay for it. Champus, what is it? What is it for life? TRICARE for life doesn't cover it, and the treatment is anywhere between $600 and $900 per treatment, and the treatment recommendation is twice a week for 3 weeks. So you're looking at 6 treatments. Do the math. So we're offering a service in my offices, one of my offices in St. Augustine specifically, which we're doing it virtually to start with, to offer this service to our veterans to be able to access this medicine and be able to be treated in the comfort of their home, because I understand how difficult it is for them to step out of their home, and then supplement with the cannabis. But let's get to the root of it, and let's work on the specific receptors in your brain that are dealing with these memories and these demons.
Well, you're obviously a pioneer, and you've well stated why and how and the experience that you have in this realm of medicine. And it's also important to note that when people want to, as you said, step out away from the prescription pad and look towards something else, it can be costly. And you're obviously a pioneer in telehealth medicine as well, which is what you just talked about. How can people contact you, Doc? Because I know we're looking to close out this segment. How can they get in touch with you and explore this a little further?
They can go to my website, which is josephrosadomd.com, josephrosadomd.com. On there, there's a place where they can schedule a 15-minute free consultation to see if
love that one, free,
to see if they are a candidate for the services that I offer. They can schedule an appointment online, a virtual appointment. They're not a patient, so we can manage it. Cannabis is not a visit. Like if they qualify to be a medical cannabis patient, in the state of Florida, we cannot do that virtually. That has to be done face to face in the same room. However, the ketamine services and the other services that I offer can be done virtually. And so the best and fastest way to do so is go to my website, josephrosadomd.com, click the link, schedule an appointment, schedule a 15-minute free consultation. We'll have a conversation. Based on that conversation, we'll determine whether I'm the person for you or not. If I am not, I can direct you to where someone can help you, and then we'll go from there.
Outstanding. And I know there's so much more to talk about, and hopefully you'll join us again on American Warrior Radio. But I just want to say, for anybody that's interested, that's a simple website. You're listening to the man, josephrosadomd.com, and you can get plugged in to his entire scene and the service that he provides. Now, John, you had something they want to know about. This is my producer. I have two of them, so I have two people talking to me.
It's cooking.
There's a lot of different things. There's cooking with THC, with oil. There's edibles. There's lots of different things, and I'm guessing that you provide, a smorgasbord of opportunity for them. They don't necessarily have to have flower, which is the weed and the pipe. They can do the oils and what have you, and vaping, right, sir?
Yeah, in the state of Florida, there are multiple modes of administration. You have inhalation, which can be in the form of a electronic cigarette, a nasal inhaler, a regular inhaler like you're an asthmatic. They have a meter dose inhaler. They have dabs. They have rosin. So that's inhalation. You also have sublingual oils and tinctures that you would put the oils under your tongue. There are capsules. There are edibles in the form of gummies, cookies, etc. There are capsules. There are thicker tinctures. You have your Rick Simpson oil, which is a very thick, concentrated oil. You also have topicals. You have patches. You have topical creams, gels, lotions, but also patches that you would apply. And so there's different modes of administration. And when the patient consults me, I go over each one of the modes of administration and explain how to mix and match so they can get the biggest bang for their buck. Because understanding that, again, insurance does not pay for the office visit, insurance does not pay for the medication. You want to look for the best way to get the biggest bang for your buck so that you take advantage of this medication.
And get on to a healing path for sure. Well, Dr. Rosado, I applaud you for the work you're doing. As I've said several times, you're a pioneer. And I just want to congratulate you, sir, for the, I'm sure, hundreds, if not thousands of people that you have served and provided this service to, that steps outside of the prescription pad and directs it more to a natural method, this plant-based. And Folks, it's easy to get a hold of Dr. Rosado. JosephRosadoMD.com. We'll post the link here on American Warrior Radio Show. Doc, again, thank you, and I do hope you'll come back and share some more stories with us about you personally, because you've got a whole bunch, I can tell, as well as some of your patients' success stories. So until then, I thank you again, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you again, and until next time, peace.
Peace. Don't forget, thank a vet. Hi everyone, it's Garen Cohn with American Warrior Radio. I'm here with my good friend Christian. We're here to deliver a very important message about a crisis in our land.
Suicide prevention, more specifically, veteran suicide prevention.
22 a day are taking their own lives. This must stop. This can't continue. If you or someone you know is contemplating suicide, please know that God has tomorrow planned for you. Don't take your own life, and just remember, suicide is a permanent solution
To a temporary problem.